where you can watch the races and win. So as I mentioned, there's 24 races currently on the calendar. There's a 4-day race weekend format. It all starts on Thursday. This is when the media day starts. This is where drivers and teams are doing interviews. You can start walking around some of those paddocks, seeing if you can see your favorite driver, maybe get an autograph if you're really lucky. Friday is where the action really starts. Free practice 1 or FP1. This is what gives teams and drivers the first hour on track to really start practicing with their cars, the new setup changes like new wing angles, start working with different data, just how's the weather going. If a driver misses FP1, such as wrecking out, that can greatly hamper how they do the rest of the weekend. I personally love to watch FP1 because in that hour you get to hear from the commentators like what's happened over the past week or two since the last race. You get to hear about some tech changes they brought in. You can hear about personnel issues or personnel changes they might have had. So FP1, you get a lot of that kind of background commentary. Later that afternoon on Friday, you get FP2. This is where teams continue to start fine-tuning their cars. Drivers will start doing some longer distances, preparing for Sunday. And then we've got FP3. This is where teams are really trying out what it's going to be like for qualifying later that afternoon on Saturday. Qualifying is what sets the positions on the grid for the race on Sunday. That's when teams are going out there to try to put in their fastest lap times. You'll typically see drivers do like a warm-up lap. So just get one to build up a battery because they're using hybrid systems since 2014 and build up some battery. All that battery gives them extra horsepower. And then they do what they call a hot lap. They're just going to go as fast as they possibly can, draft behind another car if they get some clean air, and try to put in that fastest lap time. There's 3 sessions drivers have to try to put in their best times. So it starts with Q1. It says 18 minutes long. If 20 drivers are on track, the last 5 with the slowest time get knocked out. Take the car back to the garage, get out of the car, go take a much needed shower, and think about it till race day and how you're going to improve in the race and get up to speed there. So you want to get a good qualifying in. Then after a brief pause, teams getting reset, we'll go to Q2. This is now a 15-minute session, so 3 minutes shorter. And the remaining 15 drivers to go out there, try to give it their all again. Try to get at least 2 hot laps in generally. And same thing, last 5 drivers, the slowest 5 of those 15 will get eliminated. And then we go on to Q1. That's now a 12-minute one. This is now the final session for the remaining 10 drivers to all try to get that coveted pole position. That is the driver who finishes with the fastest time overall. Now, once the dust is settled and qualifying is over, things can still change. There might be things such as penalties that happen during qualifying. One of the most common ones is impeding, where basically one driver's on a slow lap, one driver's on their hot lap trying to get a time in. The slower one doesn't get out of the way, kind of blocks them, impedes them. Well, that can be a penalty depending on the circumstances. That can apply to your overall qualifying time and where you start the next day. If you go over track limits, this is where basically all 4 of your tires have gone beyond the white line on the track. So let's say you've only put in 1 hot lap that qualifying round and you've gone outside. That's when you'll hear them say track limits. You might have seen a driver with the fastest time and suddenly it's gone. They're back to no time set. It might be because of track limits. They went outside the bounds and they had to start from the scratch again in terms of getting that lap in. And if they waited too long, that's it. They're going to start at the back of the field or the back of whatever that session was. Once qualifying hits, teams can't change their cars anymore for the rest of the weekend. They can make, tweaks like tighten a nut or so. But whatever aero package, like aerodynamic package they've set up that weekend, that's what they're going with. It's called parc fermé. Parc fermé means closed park. It basically means kind of like your teacher in school, like pencils down, you can't write anything more than your test time is over. But now after 24 hours, it's the big event, the Grand Prix. As I mentioned before, when those 5 red lights go out, it's just full speed racing and strategy for about 90 minutes. If there's red flags, the race will typically go longer, maybe add 20 to 30 minutes as they clean up the track. But overall, most broadcasted races are about 2 hours long, and that includes the post-race interviews, the cool-down room, the champagne celebrations on the podium. If you're ever watching a replay of a race and you see that, say, about 2 hours and 30 minutes, you're like, somebody's going to wreck. Somebody must have smashed the wall really hard, or maybe 2 people, or 3, and the race must have stopped for a while. So you can always look for that if you're watching replays. I don't know about you, but just if I open my phone for anything these days, I have to look away quickly because otherwise it might be spoiled for me. On the days where I can't watch the race on Sunday itself and I've got to wait for Monday, such as it's actually my time zone at like 2 a.m. on a Monday, and I've got to wait till at least lunchtime, if not later on that evening, I'm having to like write reminders to myself of don't look at my phone. Because if I do, even Google is going to look at that and like, hey, I know you like F1. Do you want to know who won? No, I don't. So keep that in mind when you start really getting into races, because since they happen across the world, they won't always be in your time zone. And I mentioned sprints before. The sprint calendar and the way it's organized changes up a bit every year. I personally like this format right now. I like having a qualifying event on Friday, a race on Saturday, another qualifying event on Saturday, and then the race on Sunday. It's like 4 main events in 3 days. So media day, FP1 stays the same, qualifying and Grand Prix stay the same. But because there's 6 races a year, adds some extra spectacle the entire weekend. On Friday afternoon, instead of FP2, you get a shorter 45-minute qualifying session. So there's still 3 sessions, but they're called SQ1, SQ2, and SQ3. They've reduced times, and it's the same thing because you're trying to get the fastest lap for what this sprint races on Saturday. This replaces FP3. So sprint races are also shorter. It's about 17 to 24 laps depending on the circuit because they're all of different lengths. And in a normal Grand Prix, you have to switch your tires at least once a race, like change the compound from a soft to a medium or a soft to an inter. But in a sprint, there's no mandatory pit stops, and drivers may or may not like sprints. They might not enjoy it as much, but as fans, we definitely love getting some extra racing action in every weekend.